As a result, during the 2 months of siege, nearly 200,000 died of hunger or froze to death in the city. After the battle was over, the CCP, without a tinge of shame, proudly proclaimed that they had liberated Changchun without firing a single shot. Using ways like this, the CCP used harsh violence and deception, sinister and ruthless methods, successfully chased the KMT away from the mainland. The Communist Manifesto relates the Communist Party's historical and philosophical basis to class conflict and struggle. The proletariat broke free from traditional morals and social relations for the sake of seizing power. Communist philosophy promotes fighting. Struggle relies on hatred. Where hatred does not exist, it can be incited and created. Incitement and fighting are the 6th and 7th inherited traits of the CCP. A well-known story of class oppression, The White-Haired Girl, was originally a story about a woman immortal. It had nothing to do with class conflicts. But under the pens of the military writers, she became a person who was being persecuted with enormous hatred. They created a landlord to bully the white-haired girl and transformed a classic folktale into a propaganda piece promoting class struggle. The story was then transformed into a modern drama, opera, and ballet. Inciting the masses to struggle against each other is a classic trick of the CCP. That is where the formula for class division comes from, making 95% of the population struggle against the remaining 5%. The CCP has made full use of and developed this technique in many of its political movements. People classified into the 95% were safe, but those within the 5% were enemies and were struggled against. Out of fear and to protect themselves, most people strived to be included in the 95%. This resulted, though, in many cases in which people brought harm to others, even adding insult to injury. Fighting, to the CCP, is more than the armed forces and armed struggle. Mao Zedong said, "A revolution is not a dinner party, or writing an essay, or painting a picture, or doing embroidery. A revolution is an insurrection, an act of violence by which one class overthrows another." We need to struggle to seize power, and we also need struggle during periods of peace. In 1941, the CCP began the so-called rectification movement in Yan'an. It created a model for persecution that is most fearsome. The first step of the rectification was to set up individual personnel archives. One had to list all acquaintances since birth, all important events, and the times and places of their occurrence. Emphasis was placed on personal thought processes during these social activities. Evaluation, based on party nature, was even more important, and one had to confess any anti-party thoughts or behavior in one's consciousness, speech, work attitudes, everyday life, or social activities. In fact, the rectification movement was a so-called cleansing movement by which Mao Zedong intended to purge and eliminate party dissidents. The CCP used methods of testing everyone. It extorted so-called confessions through torture, resulting in countless frame-ups, false, and wrong accusations. During the rectification, Yan'an was called a place for purging human nature. According to the Guangdong District County statistics, the number of types of corporal punishment they used was around 24. The rectification movement was the most horrendous, darkest, and most ferocious power game ever played out in the human world. It blasphemed human civilization and dignity. It distorted human nature and conscience. Under anxiety and fear, people abandoned honor and self-respect. Under intimidation and torture, people betrayed their conscience and friendship. According to a report in the CCP-controlled Liberation Daily newspaper, in Shuishe County, 160 people were said to have repented, more than 280 were said to have confessed, and 190 people were exposed. Even teenage children went up to the stage and confessed that they were spies. In order to protect one's own life, the people stopped expressing their own opinions and began to simply recite quotations from party leaders instead. The rectification movement in Yan'an has since become the template for CCP's political movements. Since its early stages, the CCP has continuously built up its comprehensive theoretical system of genocide. It is composed of the CCP's theories on class, revolution, struggle, violence, dictatorship, political movements, political parties, and more. It encompasses all the experiences that it has accumulated. Elimination is the CCP's eighth inherited trait. The CCP has also done other things with absolute cruelty, similar to the rectification movement in Yan'an. It deprived landlords and capitalists of their property, exterminated the landlord and rich peasant classes, destroyed rank and order in the countryside, kidnapped and extorted the wealthier people, brainwashed war prisoners, and even claimed to reform industrialists and capitalists. It infiltrated and disintegrated the KMT, and it split from the Communist International and betrayed it. It has even threatened its own members with coercion. Everything the CCP did was hard line. Everything mentioned above was based on the CCP theory of genocide. The essential expression of the CCP genocide is the extermination of conscience and independent thought. If Hitler was said to have exterminated the flesh body of human beings, then the CCP not only wants to exterminate the flesh body, but even more so, wants to exterminate the human mind and spirit. Each and every political movement has been to reform the people's mind and brainwash the human spirit. Genocide serves the fundamental interests of the CCP. Under this reign of terror, the CCP will not only eliminate you if you are against it, but it may also destroy you even if you are for it. It will eliminate whomever it deems should be eliminated. Consequently, everyone lives in the shadow of terror, and everyone fears the CCP. All of the CCP's inherited traits and means aim to achieve one single goal: control. To control is the CCP's ninth inherited trait. Through its evil actions, the CCP has proved itself to be the natural enemy of all existing social forces. Since its inception, the CCP has struggled through one crisis after another. The perpetual fear for survival has made maintaining its existence and power the highest interest of the party. The party's interest is not the interest of any single party member, nor is it a collection of any individual interests. Rather, the interest of the party, as a collective entity, overrides any sense of the individual. Party nature is one of the most vicious characteristics of the Communist Party. Party nature overwhelms human nature and conscience, and has the power to make people lose their humanity. The beautiful melody of this folk song from northern Shanxi province is a familiar tune to people's ears, yet the scent rising from this flower basket is not that of any grain or cotton flowers, but rather of the opium poppy. The scent, indeed, was opium, and Mao Zedong named it the revolutionary opium. In 1942, in order to build up its financial resources for a civil war, a mass production movement was launched in Yan'an. The Central Political Bureau of the CCP established an opium production committee led by Ren Bushi, one of the early leaders of the CCP. They, along with the Japanese, sold opium to regions controlled by the KMT, poisoning their own countrymen. In the Vladimirov Diaries, Peter Vladimirov, a representative of the Comintern and a reporter from the TASS news agency based in Yan'an, recorded a statement made by Dong Fa, a member of the Central Political Bureau of the CCP. He said, "In the past, we sent out one truckload of food after another, and we came back with only a small bag of money. Now, we send out small bags of opium to KMT territories, and we actually bring back big bags of money, one after another. We can use the money to buy guns, cannons, and bullets to fight the KMT." At the 100th anniversary of the birth of Ren, the director of the Opium Production Committee, his party nature was highly praised by the CCP, claiming him to possess superior character, a firm belief in communism, and unlimited loyalty to the cause of the party. He was a model party member. Upon gaining power, the CCP expanded its party nature even further. It successfully launched a campaign of mind control to mold new party tools and screws, such as Lei Feng. These protocols demanded the Chinese people to willingly comply, obey, and cooperate for the benefit of the party. Under CCP rule, everything is done for the interest of the party. Nothing is done for the people, because the party interest overrules everything. When it comes to the party's interest, there is no right from wrong, no good from evil, no justice. The CCP uses party nature to control the entire party and subsequently the rest of society. Clothed in the name of the nation, party nature has been forced upon the people as a set of proper thoughts, a range of stereotypical behaviors, and a regulatory system. From the party leader to the ordinary people, not one person was left out. After several decades of brainwashing, the party nature way of thinking has become inherent in the Chinese people. They became self-restrained, self-compliant, and self-disciplined. The CCP is as hard as steel. It has discipline as solid as iron and has unified intentions. All party members are made of special materials, and the actions of all Chinese people must be in unity. The CCP has a life of its own, with its own independent body. The party runs the officials. It's not the officials running the party. In fact, a majority of the highest party officials, the general secretaries, have, in the end, been labeled anti-communist. The founder of the CCP, Chen Du-shu, was an intellectual and a leader of the May 4th student movement in 1919. He showed himself not a fan of violence and warned the CCP members that if they attempted to convert the KMT to communist ideologies or had too much interest in power, that would certainly lead to strained relationships. While being one of the most active in the May 4th generation, Chen was also tolerant. However, he was the first to be labeled a right-wing opportunist. Another CCP leader, Chu Zhubai, believed that the CCP members should engage in battles and fighting, organize rebellions, overthrow authorities, and use extreme means to return the Chinese society to its normal functioning. However, he said before his death, "I left your movement a long time ago. History played a trick, bringing me, an intellectual, onto the political stage of revolution, and keeping me there for many years. In the end, though, I still could not